What's up everyone, it's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Please follow my Instagram at Russo Lifts, just in case something happens to this YouTube channel. You can follow, message, and you can watch my daily story content on Instagram. I'll see you there. What's up everyone, it's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Reporting from the trap house. I will be giving a new apartment tour as well as starting my show prep. I'm going to do a SARM log before that, but today's video is a clout chasing video. Yay, the only way to grow on YouTube nowadays. But I was sent this Instagram story from two different people, and the person I'm referring to is Hunter Labrada. So Hunter Labrada is Lee Labrada's son. So very, amazing pedigree as far as genetics go, very successful bodybuilder. But he was asked in his Q&A on what he thinks about SARMS, should you do SARMS, and I'm going to roll it right now.
So I get asked this almost every Q&A, along with everyone else who does Q&As that I consider to know what they're doing, and we all say the same thing. SARMs are stupid. There is no clinical research behind them. They are for research purposes only, and in my opinion are unsafe.
So what's my take on this? Well, again, I don't want to attack Hunter. I'm a fan of Hunter. I think his physique is sick, and I've been a follower of Lee Labrada as well when I got into bodybuilding, so nothing against him at all. I see this a lot personally, and it's just, this is my viewpoint. You can take it for how it is, and I would like to hear your guys' viewpoints in the comments section. But I get it if he's just saying that because, he wants to mitigate harm mitigation, and he's not, for promoting enhancement, and he wants to quote unquote save the youth, even though, the youth knows everything about PEDs. It's not him behind magazines anymore. It's not in every single bodybuilding forum. I get that. I get if he's trying to mitigate that risk and not be associated with promoting any, androgen. I understand that SARMs are in research, right? They're research chemicals. What are they being researched for? Muscle wasting diseases and bone density, right? What were steroids researched for? Those same things. Do we know what steroids do in the androgen pathway and the side effects they cause? Yes. Are all synthetic androgens pretty much the same that operate in the androgen pathway? To a certain extent, yes, you can expect the same side effects. But it's like saying SARMs aren't safe, but saying multi-compound steroid cycles with HGH, insulin, and tren are safe. The trenbolone is a steroid that was designed for cattle, never for human consumption, and that's probably the most used steroid, right? So it's kind of hypocritical he's saying that. I just show me the data, show me the clinical data you can reference where it shows what happens with a multi-compound cycle, right? Multiple stacking steroids on top in astronomical dosages. How is that safe? Okay, I think SARMs are misunderstood in the fact that they pose a lot less side effects on paper, which they're researching into, than steroids. They were designed and developed to be more selective than steroids, cause less side effects. Do they give the same results as, a tren, HGH, insulin, high dosage test cycle? No. But does everyone want to be an insane mass monster? Some people just want a sustainable, enhanced physique. Sustainable. So when you look at it, right, SARMs are 70% of what steroids are with way less side effects. You're not worrying about estrogen conversion, not binding with the prostate. There's a lot of good things on paper that present points to pointing towards SARMs in the future, and obviously they're being developed for the future. There is data on SARMs, right? There are clinical trials on SARMs, LGDs pretty much almost all the way through. There's a RAD 140 study, which I'll show up on the screen, which documented 150 milligrams a day, which is way more than what anyone is taking on the underground for, PEDs. And that was well tolerated. There is data to look for. Is it limited data? Yeah, they're still in research, right? What are they being researched for? Human consumption for muscle wasting diseases and bone density increases. They wouldn't spend millions of dollars developing them if they didn't pose a greater benefit to the intended goal that steroids were intended for, essentially. So that's right off the bat. And then the next point I want to make is enhanced bodybuilding is never safe. Bodybuilding in general is dangerous. Bodybuilding, you are fighting the body the entire time. The body does not want to hold on to a shit ton of lean muscle mass. That's a lot of maintenance for it. So it's not really going to ever cooperate, and gaining weight isn't really the healthiest option. Obviously, bodybuilding is a sport with a lot of risk in it. So that being said, SARMs pose less side effects, right? There's less binding to the prostate scene, no estrogen conversion, and more selectivity towards a bone and muscle tissue. So you're not having it bind with organs. Like if you do a big dose of testosterone, just know that that testosterone is also targeting your intestines and prostate, right? It spills over into the AR on parts of the body you don't want. If you're doing trenbolone, that is binding with the brain and will speed up the development of Alzheimer's, is what we've seen in the studies. So, you know, it's just like, how can you bash SARMs in that sense, right? I understand that SARMs are being developed currently. We don't know the long-term side effects of SARMs, but SARMs are an androgen in the androgen pathway. There are multiple synthetic androgens in the androgen pathway that have been studied. So pretty much all the side effects have already been discovered, which are pretty much similar to the steroid side effects, some to a lesser degree. There are certain things that we notice with SARMs, like SHBG crash and other things, but in reality, how can you really, quote unquote, deem them not safe versus a traditional gear cycle? That's just my personal opinion on it. And it's like, why is there this divide? Like, why is there steroid only people who hate on SARMs, and then there's SARMs only people, and then there's people who side with the SARMs? Like, I'm in the middle, right? Obviously, Hunter Labrada probably needs steroids to achieve and maintain the physique he currently has, right? But not everyone wants to, number one, take the risk of those steroids and HGH, and number two, maintain that much of an insane physique, right? Like, when I take steroids, my blood pressure goes up, and I just generally feel like shit. Like, I feel like I'm taxing my body. When I do a SARM close to the dosage in the clinical trials, like, yes, my cholesterol is skewed, yes, it might be a little bit more toxicity, my ALT might go up, but it's not, you know, I don't feel like shit, and it's not impacting my biomarkers to a point where, you know, tren would impact it, which tren is kidney toxic, binds with the brain, speeds up Alzheimer's, whereas something like R8140 is actually neuroprotective, and you can see the study proving that. So there is a ton of benefits and a ton of promise for the future. Obviously, I want to see them studied harder. I want to see more long-term testing, and you know, I'm obviously a lab rat, but in my opinion, all synthetic androgens are synthetic androgens that operate in the androgen pathway, and we know most of the side effects associated with them. There might be some obscure side effect we see in the future with SARMs, but it's looking like right now, the way all the data is presented, and the reason why millions of dollars were spent developing SARMs, is because they are the evolution of steroids, right? They are steroids with less side effects, more selectivity, and in general could benefit the public more with anti-aging. Older people, their bones get real brittle, right? A little bit of a SARM probably wouldn't really impact their biomarkers, and they could get like 20% bone density increase. That could stop someone, you know, if your grandma fell, broke her hip, that might stop the break, right? So there's a lot of posed benefit, right? So that's my rant. I want to see what you guys think. In my opinion, I'm not on the SARMs team. I'm not on the steroids team, you know. I'm right in the middle, right? I like hybrid cycles. If you want to compete and get massive, obviously you got to go towards the real gear and the HGH and the insulin, or sway that way. But not everyone is trying to be a mass monster. Some people just want a maintainable enhanced physique that's not impacting their biomarkers. And maybe the SARM does impact their biomarkers. I've seen both sides. I've seen SARMs impact biomarkers pretty significantly, and I've also seen, virtually very little impact on something minor like ostrine, right? Multiple things that is what keeps the development for SARMs going, and that's where the future is pointing. So in my opinion, it's kind of hypocritical to state that. I understand if he stated it just as like harm mitigation, don't ever do PEDs, the safe light as far as that goes. I get that, I 100% get that, but in my opinion, SARMs show a lot of promise, and they are being researched. Tren was never researched on humans. Equipoise is a veterinarian. There's a lot of gear that has virtually no data on it, and then there's virtually no clinical data at all that demonstrates what happens when you stack multi-compounds together, right? There's no clinical trials of that. So that is obviously going to be dangerous, right? There's no way around it. Bodybuilding is a risk to reward type deal, right? So SARMs pose less risk, as we know today. Most of them do, but less reward, right? Tren has a much higher risk. You get way more reward out of it, right? That's how it normally works. The more power, the more side effects. Now, there are a couple SARMs, in my opinion, that compete with real gear, like S23 and LGD 3303. I've taken orals, Anadrol, D-ball, and I think S23 and LGD 3303 are right up there. And the overall milligram count of SARMs is so much lower than real gear, right? People aren't even doing RAD 140 at 150 meg a day like in that clinical trial. People are going with like 20 to 50 a day, right? So we're not even like pushing the dosages. We're sticking around the clinical dosings for most of these SARMs, whereas in bodybuilding with steroids, they're going way over the clinical dosages. So let's say for testosterone, the one testosterone study where they did 600 milligrams, and they kind of found that as like, the sweet spot as far as muscle gain goes, because testosterone is the most studied. Obviously, if you want to be the quote-unquote safest, then 100 to 220 tests a week is probably the quote-unquote safest, most researched, HRT essentially, right? I think even 250, your biomarkers are going to be impacted significantly to a point where you can say that it isn't safe. So that's my 2 cents. I really just hate the divide, and there's always, I guess, going to be one between SARMs and real gear. Like, they're all synthetic androgens is, I guess, the main point I'm making. And, lumping SARMs as these obscure things that suck, when in reality, and if you dig through the clinical data, it's showing a much different story on the current research they have. Obviously, they haven't been researched for decades, but it's looking like they will be, and they pose a lot less side effects on paper from what we've seen. So I want to see what you guys think. Comment down below. I'll see you guys in my next video.